Hey everyone, it has now been 48 hours since the reveal of the Switch 2. The thing that seemed like it was never going to happen, then suddenly it was shadow dropped, no heads up or anything, Nintendo just threw it out there, and as it turns out, it's pretty much what we were all expecting. But now that we've had time to, process and reflect on everything, and watch Mario Kart over and over and over, which I was doing ad nauseum day one, I want to discuss how we're all feeling about it now, including things like, what we think of the hardware, now, especially with the mouse feature being confirmed, which is, really only rumored before, or we didn't quite know what it was going to do. Of course, we know there's an event coming up on April 2nd with even more details to come. And, like I mentioned, we saw Mario Kart as well, but I want to kind of just get like a vibe check starting off with how we're all feeling at this point. So, Nick, you were there with us during the stream. How are you feeling now, now that we're a couple days removed from the reveal?
I'm still excited. I'm still waiting for more information. I feel like we know less now that we actually know that the product exists. Because before, it was just all speculation. It was all these rumors coming in over the past couple of weeks. But now it's like, oh, this is an actual thing. We can not touch it yet, but it's real. So
are you sure? I've got one right here. I haven't touched it.
Is that Switch 2 or what?
It's a mock. No, Tom. This is actually a 3D printed version of the Switch 2 I got sent. It's obviously not a one-to-one match with a released product. I was supposed to get this a few weeks ago, but the shipment got lost. I finally got it yesterday, and my favorite. I have to say, I am addicted to this.
Oh, it even has.
It's really cool. I'm like, okay, that's a cool Switch 2 feature. So
wait, then does it have the actual triggers or the eject buttons on the back too?
It does. They're not functional though.
Yeah.
So I just for this model, you just rip them out. So.
Oh my!
What about the stand? What about the stand?
Stand also doesn't work. But real quick, since I mentioned that, I should give a shout out to the case manufacturer that sent it to me, being iValor. There's a link in the description. If you click that link, you get 50% off it. So, anyways, with that out of the way.
Awesome.
Sorry, Nick, continue.
Yeah, but I mean, like I was saying, now we know it actually exists. It's real. It's physical. I just wanted a one last thing or one more thing during that trailer, because ending on Mario Kart, or it was even ending on Mario Kart, it ended on what? The experience coming up, or the last few it was just text, a lot of information. It was, oh, you can play Switch 1 games. Oh, there's a Direct coming in April. Oh, and here's the Switch experience in April as well. So, again, I wish there was one more thing, a game or something that we could talk a little bit more about, but, I mean, we're just going to have to wait, so...
Watching it at the time, I felt like Mario Kart was the one more thing. I was almost like, oh, we're not getting any games here? And then Mario Kart thankfully popped up. Tom, same thing for you. You were here with us for the stream. How are you feeling now? Same, different at all, or
I'm more excited about Mario Kart now than I was at the time after watching your analysis and thinking about it. At the time, it's like, oh no, don't be just like another like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe 99 or something like that. Like not that turn 99, like the EA Sports yearly update. No, a lot more excited about that now. The Switch itself, like, I'm happy that I'll get a new system for Nintendo to like bring around other than Steam Deck, because I've been using Steam Deck way more than my Switch lately. But it's like there's still questions unknown ultimately about the game, so I'm still on that. Pleasant, like pretty good so far, but not like to the moon or anything like that yet.
Right, yeah, it kind of feels like you're falling in the middle of like what has felt like has been a little bit of a divisive reception to it, at least among hardcore fans, where some people are like, this is great, some people are like, there's not much new going on here, or it's what we expected from the leaks. Don, though, you weren't with us for the stream, but how are you feeling now about everything, especially if it's changed at all since the reveal?
I don't think that's changed much. I think the leaks sort of ruined the surprise for me in general. Like, especially the leaks of the last 2 months, they were pretty accurate about what this thing was actually looking like.
Shockingly spot on, yeah.
Yeah, which is very unlike Nintendo. Even when you look back on the Switch, yes, we had the sketches of what it roughly looked like. There was still no idea of what the form factor was actually going to be. But this time around, we knew the entire form factor of what this thing was going to look like. And even with the sides, with the colors, we kind of knew. Yeah. So so ultimately, there was not much of a surprise anymore. Right. I still enjoyed like watching it. It feels weird to have like a Nintendo product trailer without people in it, because even with the OLED and the light, they still had people in there showcasing the product.
Yeah.
But they kept to the basics. They were like, hey, this is a round trip of what the hardware is like. We're not going to show you anything. We're not going to show you the button under the home button. We're not going to show you what the sensor is like. This is just a general overview of the hardware. And then somehow weirdly disconnected from that, feels like they did another few product shows and then show Mario Kart.
Right.
So it feels like they, if you want to believe the leaks, and I kind of do before this was announced, it feels that that part of sort of slapped on as a last surprise.
That's a good one. It's possible. Yeah, it almost felt like, I mean, they really stretched what they could of the hardware itself, right? It feels like they're flipping through it a couple times more than they needed to necessarily, though it was still like a brisk reveal overall. But I think it is funny, especially looking back now, even though I noticed it a bit during then, but like just how self-aware Nintendo was of not repeating the mistakes of the Wii U, where they're like, there's no way anyone could misperceive this as being not a successor, in that they literally started off with the original Switch as it morphs into the Switch 2. And then at the very end, they show them side by side, to make it even more clear that this is a new product, even if it still looks very similar to the original, just, a little bit more refined. And I do like the color augments it has, with the Joy-Cons and the inners. I think that's cool. But like you said, it matches the leaks. It's crazy that this was shipped weeks ago. Like, we have 3D prints of this thing before it was even officially revealed, and even after that point, we got people got the colors right, based on the leaks, and the renders of every accessory, like the handheld thing, I forget, the grip, and the dock itself. It's just crazy just how leaked this thing is. And so what this reveal acted as was more of an affirmation. It's like, okay, here's the official thing. We're not going to tell you anything more about it until April 2nd for whatever reason. But we will only show you one game, which is Mario Kart. And like Tom, when I first saw that, I tweeted this out. I'm like, is that, like, my first few seconds, I'm like, is that just Mario Kart 8 Deluxe again, on a new desert track? And luckily, the more I took a look at it, I'm like, okay, this actually is pretty exciting looking. They're actually doing some seemingly new things here, even if, it's not officially confirmed yet. I'm like, okay, I'm seeing the potential with, at the least, the most obvious thing, 24 racers. So we'll talk more about Mario Kart soon, but I want to circle back or dive in a little bit deeper into the actual hardware itself, the actual Switch 2. And I'm curious, like, it by itself, like, is it enough to, like, did it sell you on this being a new piece of hardware, or is it just kind of like what you would have expected from its successor anyway? I know, Don, you mentioned like the leaks took some of the steam out of the potential announcement for you. But now that we've had time to process what the Switch 2 actually is, from what we can tell, including, again, the mouse feature. That's my mouse right there. How are you feeling about it?
I'm pretty excited. I would say that I'm more excited than when we were during the 2025 discussion, because now we know it's a real thing. I think it looks really fun, but they really shied away from showcasing what this new thing is actually going to be about, because the new gimmicks, and we kind of saw them in the leaks, were not talked about at all. We like know it's like the mouse, like the C button. It's basically, we got an overview of the hardware, which looks pretty fun. Like, I'm pretty excited for have more stronger hardware at all, especially after having this thing for about 8 years now. Like, that's exciting. But I don't think they kept a lot of things on the wraps, which they, for some reason, don't want to show us until April 2nd.
It still is kind of crazy to me that, a big part of the whole reason for this upgrade, as you mentioned, is the increased power. And Nintendo didn't even touch on it at all. Like, after diving deep into Mario Kart, I'm like, okay, I can see a couple of things that, look better than this 10-year-old Mario Kart. But still, like, it didn't show that immediate, like, huge graphical upgrade. And maybe it's just that Nintendo still doesn't even care. Like, obviously we still can't compete with PS5, even if some games end up looking, not too far removed from it. But maybe they're still continuing along the same track. But at the same time, it's like you still need to sell this as a major upgrade, and I don't know the mouse feature by itself is enough to really cement that for most people. I mean, I guess ultimately, as kind of Tom said earlier, it's going to come down to the games. Like, if there's a bunch of Switch 2 games you can only play on Switch 2, well, obviously I'm going to need a Switch 2 to play them.
It's still, what I worried about, right? It's the thing I worried about also in the last discussion we had, is like, I think it's a really strong upgrade for somebody who is a handheld player, or say somebody who plays in tabletop mode, because that kickstand goes far.
And the bigger screen too will make it better for that, But if you are a console player, you're still sort of holding back of what is this? Right. Nick, are you mostly a handheld gamer or are you mostly a dock gamer?
So I'm in the camp of 50-50, right?
Okay.
Because like when I play with my girlfriend, we go back and forth. Like she'll be on the TV playing Switch, her Switch, and then I'll be in handheld mode, or we'll switch back and forth. So yeah, like I said, I'm in the camp of both. I don't have a preference. I really enjoy playing both, especially when I'm traveling. But yeah, to kind of go to the point. Wait, go ahead.
No, please continue.
Yeah, so to go to the point that you guys were saying before, I wish they really showed off that this was a more powerful Switch. Because when they showed off that image of Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and they have them side by side, it's like, there's no difference. You can't tell the difference. If it was like a third-party game or something that couldn't have been playable on the previous Switch, or wow, this looks a little bit better or running better, even like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet or Xenoblade, like show those off. Like that would have been key to show how powerful this thing was.
Yeah, it really is surprising, again, based on, I think one of the oldest leaks at this point, or rumors maybe I should more accurately say, is that it would have 4K capabilities. And we still don't know for sure whether that 100% is the case or not. It seems like it probably is, but Nintendo has not confirmed it. And it seems like that would have been a smart thing to get out there. You know, so a smart thing just to confirm, like, yeah, you can play Witcher 3 now in 4K, or whatever game they want to showcase, you know?
Yeah, also, even compared to the 2016 reveal, it feels sort of really slight on details. Like, it's just the hardware overview, Mario Kart, and that's it. Which is a different approach for them. They've basically told us everything we wanted to know in one go. Even with that Switch reveal trailer, they showed us the dimensions, they showed us what it's all about. They showed us not the finer details, like, for example, that there was a USB-C port on the bottom, but at least we got more general details of what the power of what this thing was going to be like. Here, it feels like we're just waiting until April right now, which feels weird.
Yeah, it's interesting, because in many respects, this whole announcement does kind of like mirror to some degree the original Switch. We get the quick trailer initially, and then we get the, you know, full blowout a couple of months later, or 3 months later almost in this case. But it felt different, because with the Switch, it was a paradigm shift, and the trailer did a great job of conveying what that was. Whereas here, we don't have that as far as we know. It seems to be very much a continuation, and because they aren't marketing that, it kind of did feel like it's missing something by comparison, you know? And in any case, it does seem like the angle for Nintendo in this case was purely to, one, finally get ahead of the leaks, or not ahead, but take over the narrative on that front, and purely show that there is new hardware coming. Just get it out there that this is what it looks like. Stay tuned for more details, you know? And so for us in the know, we've been following these rumors, it's like, well, there wasn't really a whole lot here that we didn't already know, besides seeing a new Mario Kart, because we all knew when it was going to be made, of course. But we gotta see it. You know, if you dive into it, you can pick out a few new details from it. But yeah, outside of that, it didn't really show us a whole lot more. For me personally, I will say, the most exciting thing is the confirmation that you can use a Joy-Con as a mouse. Like, that's kind of a wild thing, right? Like, and that was one of the more recent rumors too that just come out not too long ago. It had an optical sensor. People were like, "What's that for? Is it an IR port? Is it an optical sensor like on a mouse? Is it some kind of crazy like room scanner or something?" But it seems like, yeah, you straight up use it as a mouse. And I had to say that was a pretty cute tease they had in the trailer, where like the wrist strap acts as like a mouse tail, and they're like chasing after each other. And it's such a quick thing too. I'm like, are people even gonna pick up on this? But I had a video with my parents yesterday where I had them react to the trailer, but they knew nothing about it. I'm like, hey, did you guys catch that moment? You know, did you see what that was? They're like, yeah, it's a mouse. I'm like, all right, Nintendo knows what they're doing here. People picked up on it, you know?
I do think the wrist strap is a lot more sleek than the last one. I do
Definitely.
like that. Yeah.
Especially with how it snaps on. Oh, I like how it snaps on. It's so much better than sliding it on before. Because literally, I got, you know, one of the a review, you know, of the Switch, and that's one of the first things I immediately screwed up. I put it on the wrong way, and it's so hard to get off. I'm like, did I just screw up my Switch?
Yeah. I think a good chunk of people did. A good chunk
I
of
totally
people.
did that.
Yeah.
It's so easy to do. So I wonder if that's fully fixed now, or even if it isn't, just pull it off.
Speaking of Snap, this is completely random. What did you think of the new Snap sound?
I like it. I mean, it's similar. Like, it evokes the imagery or the sound of the Switch, but it has like some nice reverb to it. You know, it's got it claps.
Yeah, it's a big more of a clap. I like it.
I wonder if at one point they thought of it calling the Nintendo Snap.
I'm sure they probably must have. Like, they probably ran. Which is, again, another sign of how paranoid Nintendo was of repeating the Wii U. They're like, no, we are doing what we've never done before. We're adding a number, baby. We're like, and I know 3DS, but we're like straight up saying 2 in this case. It's a second Nintendo Switch. No one's going to confuse what this is.
Which also feels quite unprecedented, right? They never straight
Yeah.
up called their next console ... 2.
No, they haven't. And even 3DS isn't the same because it was in
No.
reference to the 3D ability. It wasn't the third DS.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see Nintendo go this route. And again, I really do think you can trace it back to the missteps of the Wii U era, where they're not trying to repeat it. And I think, even if some people might say it's boring, especially the logo, which I totally agree with, but ultimately, it's about marketing for Nintendo, and I think this probably was the smartest thing they could have done. People like the
Sure.
Switch. Some people probably even think of it more as a Switch than a Nintendo product. Not everyone, but I'm sure for some segment of the market. And marketing this as the successor to that, that's just the best thing to do. It's just the smartest thing,
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
And I think it makes a lot of sense, even if I think the logo itself, compared to the original Switch, isn't quite. I mean, it's just a 2. It just has a 2 next to it, which they're retaining the original logo, which is great. But it's like, it can be a little bit more creative for that
Okay.
too. But doesn't really
But
matter.
what if in trailers the zoom gets attracted by magnets?
Oh, I like that.
Oh, that's actually
Like, they
genius.
just come together.
Yeah.
That's actually genius. That should be how it is. Oh man,
Yeah.
I like that idea. We can mock that up. That could be a fun little short. Like here's
Oh,
how the Switch 2
yeah.
logo should be. Yeah. It almost takes me back to the Wii era with the eyes on the Wii logo acting as people initially.
For sure,
Sorry.
for sure.
Nick, did you have something?
Yeah, so going back to your point where you said, like, everyone's kind of... Or people reacted, oh, this is just kind of boring. They're playing it safe. But if you go back and look at the Wii U trailers, I don't think people were saying it was boring. I think people were just confused by
Yeah.
what they were seeing. Because
Totally.
in the Wii U trailer, you see people walking around with a tablet, and tablets were becoming a big thing at this time. So I think a lot of people were like, oh, it's just a tablet for your current Wii. Like, why do I
Right.
need that? And then they didn't even show the console, I think, till the very end of the trailer. And even in, like, mock-up pictures, like, the console was just kind of hidden behind the gamepad. So it was just difficult to tell what this was.
I do, even for people who would understand it, who are more gamer focused, I still think that the concept was also like, so what's the broader idea here? And
For the Wii U?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I still don't think for its lifespan it really figured out what it wanted to be.
It didn't. Even Nintendo seemed confused with that thing, and it partially because of like the dichotomy it had with the 2 ways of playing, being off TV play or dual screen gameplay, are completely at odds with each other. You can't do both, or at least not
Yeah.
well, really, except for a handful of instances. And
I remember Stephen Totila always carrying out the Switch with him to
the airports and everything?
Yeah, to the airports. Yeah,
which is hilarious.
Which-
He basically invented the Switch. He was using it as a Switch before anyone else.
for sure, for sure.
And Nick, kind of to your point, like I remember even the Wii U itself like looked pretty similar to the original one. So even if you saw the hardware, you may not even
Yep.
recognize it was a new thing. Which again, I think it was brilliant of Nintendo in this case to show the Switch literally transform. It's like, yeah, it looks similar, but they're showing you the changes, they're showing you the differences, and it was pretty a smart way of doing it. You're seeing how it's connected, but how it's different at the same time. Because ultimately it does look very similar. Like, ignoring the colors, like this looks very much, even though it's a Switch 2 shaped, it looks very much like a Switch OLED. But I have to say again, I love the color augments that they're using now. And I even put on Twitter yesterday a fun design I would love to see with wicked colors. You got green and pink on one side. I would love that. And I can imagine all kinds of fun combinations. Though someone pointed out to me, isn't the inside of the Switch 2 itself also colored on the railing? On
Yeah,
the
it
rails,
is.
right?
That is correct.
Yes.
Yeah, I did notice that during the trailer. Because during the transformation, they show it going from just the traditional black to whatever the inners
Right.
of the Joy-Cons were.
Right? Yeah.
Which, that's going to complicate mixing and matching Joy-Cons, right? Because they're not going to match the inner rail if you change your Joy-Cons later on.
That is correct.
Yeah.
We even see that though, like when they're
Well,
on.
only when it's, not really when it's connected to handheld, but if you're playing, docked or tabletop, then you might notice. But it doesn't really matter, I guess, is a good point, Tom. So, how are we feeling about the, I guess, the Joy-Cons, themselves? Like, are we happy, now that we know for sure that they are back, they're the
Yeah.
same basic idea, but evolved, now being bigger, they showed how it stretched out, and also, again, having the color augments and then the mouse function. Are we glad it's back? Or do we think Nintendo should have abandoned it for something else?
I'm personally happy with the design because I love playing in a handheld mode. So I'm a fan of how the Joy-Cons feel. They're a little bit bigger. I'm happy with that. If you look at something like the Steam Deck, and Tom, you know, at least when I play Steam Deck, I'm never using those trackpad features, and I'm never using the extra 2 buttons on the back. Every once in a while, I might map it to another game, whatever I'm playing, but mostly those extra functions, I'm not really using them. So I'm happy that the Switch 2 is just sticking to the traditional Switch 1 Joy-Con layout.
Yeah, that's right. I never use those other buttons either. I think maybe that's kind of like a history from their Steam controller they had at one point where it had that weird trackpad on it. But personally, for like the new Joy-Con size being way bigger, it's like this one, it's like passing to friends and stuff. Like having a much longer Joy-Con, it's going to be a lot easier to play with.
I'm still worried about the travel of the sticks, though. It doesn't seem like that has much improved over Switch 1.
I can't say myself. I've heard some people say that it looks a little longer to them, I believe, but I haven't verified that myself, so I don't know. I hope it is, though, but that would make sense to use a larger space to have a longer control stick or a slightly bigger control stick. Yeah. But I will say, though, I actually have long thought that the Joy-Cons were brilliant. Unfortunately, poorly made with the drifting that happened way too often, which hopefully they've addressed. They haven't said anything about that yet, but I imagine that they have, because I don't think Nintendo likes shelling out millions of dollars to fix all these Joy-Cons either or replace them. And so I am glad that they're taking another swing at it, which makes sense again with a Switch successor, and that they didn't abandon the idea. Because I know some people were hoping for like, a fully solid unit where you kind of like the Steam Deck, where you have to use a secondary controller if you want to play docked, for instance.
So they just want a big Switch Lite.
Yeah,
right, exactly. Right, bingo. Yeah, and I'm so glad they didn't go that route. But I think it is such a unique element of the Switch. Like, it is still pretty distinct, even by its competitors. I think there might be one or two, or a handful of others that have done something similar. But when it comes to the big ones, like, Switch is still in a class of its own, really. And I'm so glad that they're iterating on that now with bigger, more comfortable Joy-Cons, with mouse functionality. I'm so curious to see how they use that mouse. And part of me is wondering, like, is it gonna be one of those, relegated features where it's barely used, like with the IR port in the original Switch, or will it actually be embraced by developers, Nintendo and third parties alike?
I do think it has a better chance because, like, most games start as a PC game when they're in development, so they have naturally sometimes mouse and keyboard features. So it makes more sense to include that in a more conform way.
Like, even games that aren't necessarily designed around a mouse, but came from a PC, like, feel worse on consoles. I'm specifically thinking, of course, of Dead by Daylight, where even in the menus, where, like, it kind of sucks on the control pad because it was made for mouse controls. It's like, wow, now I can just detach my Joy-Con, instantly use it as a mouse, and get around the menus even better. And that's pretty, or aim better too in multiplayer, or the main game. That's pretty great, and I really hope people really use it. I did see some comments, like on one of my videos a few weeks ago. I made a video like, how could Nintendo make use of this rumored mouse feature? And some people were like, why not just plug in the USB mouse? You can do that on the current Switch. I'm like, yeah, no one does, because very few games support it, and even those that do you want to be carrying a mouse around with you? Probably not. And having it built in will at least guarantee that it's more accessible to people. More developers will probably embrace it because they know everyone can use it. Everyone is going to have 2 mice built in, which, by the way, that did confirm we have, each Joy-Con has a mouse, which is awesome. So.
And Andre, you bring up like PC game like Dead by Daylight, even though that's on every platform. But I'm thinking of other PC games that thrive on PC because you kind of need that controller mouse landscape. So, for example, like The Sims. I don't think there's any Sims that is currently on the Switch besides My Sims, which is the cheapy version, which came out on the Wii. And I don't think it really utilizes a mouse and keyboard as much as like Sims 1 through 4. So to have Sims on the Switch, that would be huge.
Yeah, RTSs, strategy games like Civ, or Civilization, the new one, 7, I think, is it?
Civ 7, yeah.
I wonder how Nintendo looked at this, because obviously, famously, Mario Maker 2 didn't have mouse support, but then Game Builder Garage did.
Which, that's hilarious, actually. And honestly, I'm almost kind of like a Mario Maker 2 hater. I don't actually hate the game, to be clear, but it felt like such a huge step back from the Wii U version, because that touchpad is perfect for the game, or the touchscreen, whereas I felt like I just didn't enjoy creating nearly as much on Switch, because playing on the screen of the controller sucked, and if you could use a touchscreen as well, but then you had to undock it, So I feel like this is a perfect middle ground of kind of replicating what the Wii U had already done, just now with a mouse. It might be even better, because you can move a mouse pretty darn quick. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what Nintendo does it with themselves. Like, will you be able to use a mouse in Splatoon 3 or Splatoon 4, maybe? Could you have, bring back the pointer from Mario Galaxy, but you actually just move the mouse around? Or, a crazy idea is, like, not to get into Mario Kart yet, but, like, we kind of touched on in our live stream, like, what if you, like, could aim items, like, with pinpoint accuracy, or at least around you, Like, you actually just click somewhere where you want to shoot an item, and there you go.
Yeah, I'm going to say, like, that is the secret gimmick I'm kind of most excited for with the mouse, because maybe it'll pave the way to more customization. Maybe, like, imagine if they had something like Mario Paint just baked into the OS that could be used with different games to customize things.
That'd be cool. I love that idea.
To do that and share it, like design your Mii and stuff, that's what I'm hoping for. Like, not everyone will use it, but it'll allow for, like, maybe more sharing more levels and stuff to play.
If Mario Kart doesn't use it, I think there's a secondary game at launch that has to use it.
I think you're right. Yeah.
You bring that up, Don, and I think I know what the secondary game could be related to Mario Maker, related to a 3D Mario. What if it is a 3D Mario Maker?
My God.
What if they just skip what if that is the big thing for this year? What if they just skip the next mainline Mario 3D game and they go right into 3D Mario Maker?
That'd be crazy.
And that's the selling point of the mouse. They want you to use the mouse to make the levels.
Yeah,
this is almost giving me vibes of the 64 disc drive, where they launched that in Japan with Mario Artist, and I think it had its own mouse as well, actually. So this is all making sense, Nick. I'm liking this.
I would also pay good money for a new Mario Artist, to be honest.
That'd be fun.
Yeah,
I always was jealous of the polygonal creator they had, because it looks simple enough. I'm like, that'd be fun to use, Make little poly art.
As we know too, we tried that Mario 64 Maker this year, and it works fine by fans. Obviously,
That's right. Yeah, there was a fan made one, and it was great. I forgot that. I've long wanted Nintendo to make Mario Maker 3D. And I think that'd be having a mouse feature for that would be awesome. Not just for like general navigation, which would be great, but I think, as you were saying, Nick, like creating your own objects or whatever, painting things, whatever it is. It reminds me a little bit of another hardware from Nintendo that had mouse support, being the Super Game Boy, where you can create your own borders. I drew a Switch on my border, and also too, I hope when we see the OS, obviously, that it has a little bit more charm to it now. Now that they have, I assume, the processing power and the RAM for it. Hopefully we can get actual proper themes, even if we're not creating them ourselves. And I imagine that'll be part of the blowout on April 2nd,
So with the blowout, are they going to be showing us the Switch 1, Switch 2 side by side at all? Are we going to see the OS and be like, oh, this is completely different? You have more themes. It's not just black and white. Like stuff like that. Or
they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it that way. They're just going to say, "Hey, Switch 2 has themes now." Because here's the thing with Switch 1, and some people don't realize this: their entire operating system runs under a megabyte.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, I didn't know.
It's
that.
like,
yeah,
I think I think it's even notably less than a megabyte. It's like
tiny.
It's
less than a megabyte. So every icon that you see on your home screen is attached to the piece of software itself, so it doesn't take up any OS space. It's basically the entire front you see there, and then everything you load is load through web.
It's so funny, again, just how everything is a reaction to the Wii U. Wii U was slow. People were confused. Just everything is a direct response to the Wii U. It's like, we're not repeating those mistakes again.
I do hope they seem the light a little bit and add more to the OS.
I think they will.
Yeah, because I do think it was good at playing games. Don't get me wrong. It was really good at playing games. If you want to do anything else, look at the eShop, go to the NSO app.
Yeah. I'm expecting more from the OS, especially because Nintendo will be using much faster memory this time too. So I don't think slow load times are even much of a concern at all. Like, especially even if you look at Xbox and PlayStation 5, and to be fully fair, I mostly go wake up from sleep mode, but that's the same with the Switch as well.
Sure.
They have pretty quick, boot up times, right? And their OSs are pretty big, I imagine. So yeah, it's not something I'm worried about. So I hope Nintendo does, like you're saying, like embrace that and actually do more cool things, especially because that will help us stand out more from the Switch. To your point, Nick, though, Yeah, well, I kind of agree with Don. I do think there will at least be some degree of comparison, at least when it comes to, the running of, like, some games, I would think. Whether it's Metro Prime 4, assuming that comes to Switch 2, which I think it will, or it's showing how past games could run on the Switch 2. But I think they will at least want to reiterate what they did in this reveal trailer, that, hey, this isn't the Switch. It's not a, extension with the OLED or Lite. It is a successor, and they'll want to continue to drive that point home, I think.
Yeah, with that, do you think they'll be mostly showing the games that are coming out in the future? So like you said, Metroid Prime 4, Pokemon ZA Legends, or are they going to go back to older games? And the games that we know that need the support for newer hardware, like Scarlet and Violet or like a Xenoblade?
It's hard to say, because I feel like we're still getting news on Switch 1 games at some point in the future, because they still keep supporting that thing. Because
there's rumor of a direct next month for Switch 1.
Yeah, and Pokemon Day is still coming and that sort of stuff, which I fully expect Legends CA at this point to be there, because it's almost been a year. So at this point, I do think there's still a divide between what Switch 2 is going to offer and Switch 1. But ultimately, does that matter? Because here's the thing, it's backwards compatible.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly, which is great, and they haven't really confirmed the whole slate of titles. Well, more accurately, they haven't said which ones won't be backwards compatible. They said a select few, which I think means for sure Labo, because the screen physically won't fit.
It's definitely your beloved Labo VR because of how the screen size is from Labo VR.
Oh, it kills me, Don! Yeah. I need a new Labo VR for Switch 2! I love Labo!
But it's also not just Labo, because, for example, WarioWare not Getting Together, is it Getting Together the second one?
WarioWare, is it Move It?
Yeah, Move It. Move It has a selection of minigames that use the IR sensor, and guess what? It's no longer on the Joy-Con.
Oh, it does! Oh, no. There's like a rock, paper, scissors, shoot one.
Yeah. Well, you could technically still connect a Switch 1 Joy-Con for the Bluetooth to it.
If they allow that, which I hope they would. So that's why I'm wondering, if they do, then the selection of games that can't be used on it drops way lower. I think it would, at that point, be basically just a Labo games that wouldn't work.
It would it would straight up be 4.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, I do hope that they allow Switch 1 Joy-Cons. And Pro controllers, just so we don't have to buy a whole new slate. But it's also for that reason why Nintendo probably wouldn't want that, but they do want us to buy 4 new $80 controllers, or however much they are this time.
Wait, I thought of a fifth one. If Switch 1 Joy-Cons are not compatible, which is Ring Fit Adventure.
Yeah, right. I was thinking Ring Fit Adventure. Yeah, that's that. Yeah. I hope it is compatible, because otherwise that's like a huge loss. Because obviously, like they missed out on making a Ring Fit expansion. They could have kept that going.
Yeah. I still think you'll be able to through Bluetooth. I have no reason to assume that they can't, but
there's no reason why they couldn't. Yeah, exactly.
What if hypothetical, there was Bluetooth in the system, but they didn't tell us for like 4 years?
Wait, didn't that happen with the Switch?
Yeah, the Switch, I think the Switch uses Bluetooth, I'm pretty sure. That'd be amazing. Oh, man.
What I was going to say, though, like, with the rumored February Direct, would you be worried, like, if they do a blowout kind of Metroid Prime 4? Because then that kind of means, like, it's not going to have any special features on Switch 2.
I don't necessarily think that's a reason to discount that. It's purely, hey, we're finally showcasing more of this game, which would ultimately be a good thing.
I think it actually worked in their benefit, right? They showed in this rumor Direct, and then they showed off again at the April Direct, and like, hey, we just showed you this game before, but here's the mouse controls. Here's the gimmick for the Switch 2. This is why you want to play it on Switch 2.
It would be I think it would be brilliant. It would be almost replicating, which was maybe unintentional at the time, the Breath of the Wild Zelda Wii U strategy, where that game, people, they were marketing it on Wii U, and when they announced it for Switch, it acted as an advertisement for Switch as well. People are like, I want that game. I will buy a Switch to play it, And I think that'd be so smart. You can sell Metroid Prime 4 on its own merits on Switch, and then you can be like, well, if you play on Switch 2, look what you get. You get the mouse and controls, higher quality visuals, whatever it is, I think it acts as an ad for the Switch 2. They almost like it's a good synergy they could have. And I want that. I really do hope that, that there, I don't think there's been any official rumblings of it, but I think it'd be so smart to have that game, come to Switch 2, because especially, we were talking about this during the live stream a little bit, I think if this does in fact launch with Mario Kart, which I think would be genius, considering it's the most
Yeah.
the biggest title that they have, basically. You pair that with Metroid Prime, which is probably the best chance of giving that series the boost it kind of needs, the boost ball it needs. Like what happened with Breath of the Wild. Yeah, I mean, Zelda games have always sold well. Breath of the Wild went stratospheric with how well it sold by comparison. If Metroid can tap into a little bit of that by being a launch title, and also showcase the Switch 2's abilities like the mouse, I think that'd be a great pairing with Mario Kart. Either your fun Mario multiplayer game, you have your more hardcore single player game in Metroid Prime 4, which could be basically Nintendo's Halo, right?
Yeah,
It's hard
I
to
think.
yeah.
Go ahead, Don.
I think it's hard to say because at this point, like, I feel like Metroid Prime 4 has been in discussion for such a long time that I'm also have the
almost a
back
decade.
feeling of my mind where I'm like, maybe they just released it for Switch 1.
It could. I mean, it's possible. It is definitely possible. What do
Because-
we think? Like, gut feeling. You're thinking no, Don, then? You think it might be only
I
on Switch
think
1?
I think it's a real 50-50. If not,
Okay, yeah.
I think at least they might, if because cartridges are fully supported in downloads as well. Maybe they just add mouse support specifically for Switch 2 and have a toggle in there.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it wouldn't be that difficult if they assuming if they possibly have gyro aiming, which they've done before in previous games.
For sure,
I
yeah.
forget. Did Metroid Prime Remastered have gyro too? I think it did, right? Or
Yes.
I think
I think
so.
it had like a bunch of control
Yeah.
options.
I
Yeah.
say worst case it gets like a 1.1 update or whatever, like Super Mario 3D All Stars with more controllers like mouse support
Right.
later.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah.
that was my favorite update of all time. I think GameCube support, baby. Yeah, or GameCube controller support. Which I wonder, will that accessory still work on Switch 2?
It should because
It
it just
could.
uses USB connections, right?
And we
So-
have two USB slots now on the hardware itself with the top and bottom ones, right?
Oh,
I believe
yeah.
they confirmed that, didn't they? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think here does my mock-up here have?
Yeah, it has
Yeah, there's a
Yeah, my
USB-C on
mock-up
the
has it.
top. So
Yeah.
I do want to talk about that because
Yeah.
I bought a certain peripheral recently over the winter break. I bought the Game Boy camera. Do you think it could support weird accessories on top of the Switch 2?
Like a camera?
Like a camera.
Like a
yes.
new Game Boy camera?
Yeah, like a new camera, or like, do you think they've done that to allow that, or just for plugging in random stuff?
I mean, it would be weird if they didn't.
Yeah. It's there for a reason, I think, right? It's probably not just there so you can choose which port to charge it through.
Yeah.
Which is still
so-
genius because for some people that was a very eyesore. So it's
Right.
nice that it finally does happen.
I'm hoping the C button isn't for connect, as in connect to accessories. Like you're saying, like the camera. Like maybe that's why they didn't show it. Maybe that's why they're waiting till April to kind of show off all these little gimmicks or connections that you can have on top of these other ports on the Switch
Right.
2.
I do think if it's the rumored social features we've seen in leaks the last few weeks, then having Mario Kart there on day one makes sense because that would showcase those social features. Similar to how Breath of the Wild showcased the landscape of playing that game on a handheld.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I remember how impressive seeing Breath of the Wild at the time was, like on a handheld. I was like, dear God, that's amazing, you know. So they can tap into any amount of that with Switch 2, even in a completely different way, as you were saying.
Yeah.
That'd be neat. I don't want to dive too much into Mario Kart quite yet, though we're getting pretty close, I think. But
sure.
I did mention that in the reveal trailer, we saw a Mario Kart TV van, and as you probably remember, Don, those were added originally because it tied into the Mario Kart TV feature in the game, which is kind of like, which is its own kind of social sharing thing, you know, through YouTube. I wonder, could they be building on that for Switch 2? You know, there've already been rumors of the C button being some kind of community-based thing, or campus, or chat, or whatever you want to call it, and that's something Nintendo did not even tap on or touch on at all in this reveal.
Yes.
You know, what's that button for? Is there going to be community-based stuff? And I hope that there is. Because Nintendo, especially, like, social media, say what you will about it, you know, I think it has many negative elements, but it is a great way of promoting games. Like, how many games have we all found about by seeing other people just tweet out or, you know, their own pictures or videos and things like that? And you want,
For sure.
I think, especially with what's going on in the kind of chaotic landscape right now with, you know, X and then TikTok maybe shutting down. So Nintendo's got to be thinking, like, we got, you know, maybe we shouldn't drop that Miiverse. Maybe we should have kept it around and done something with it, you know, so we could build on it and actually have a reliable way for people to share content with each other.
Yeah, maybe they're like, well, APIs on social media platforms are too expensive. Screw it, we'll do it on our own.
Right.
Could you imagine if Lucky Palmer bought Miiverse? Oh, that'd be terrible. No, anyway, no. I want to But my real point is I want in Mario Kart to be able to go around as a Toad and drive around the Mario Kart TV vans in different spots and set them up where I want my shots.
That's genius.
Oh,
I love that idea. Or what if you become the cameraman? You actually are the Toad or the Lakitu on the camera, and you're moving it around.
Especially, to do that after a race. I mean, it probably has all the data in place. Why not? Or if you're waiting in a lobby, sure.
See, that's what I want. I want you to be able to like make your own Mario Kart replays, or Nick to make their Mario Maker 3D levels. You share it, and it's provided to a feed in the Switch itself, or I can be like, oh, Nick made a Mario Maker level, or Don published a Mario Kart video, or Tom took a goofy Game Boy camera picture somehow.
Yeah, and then like for the levels being all connected, you can dive right into it and try it if you have the game.
Exactly. Oh, they could even go even further. Like, what if, like, let's say I don't own Mario Maker, but one of you do. You share a level. I get like 3 free trials of these levels, and then it's like, oh, that was pretty cool. Maybe I'll go pick up this game now or something, So that would be so smart. Nintendo better be doing something like that. I feel like it must be. Like, this button's gonna be pretty important, I think. So.
Like they need to build on sort of what, for example, PlayStation, Xbox do with their sort of feed, and then feed it in their own sort of system.
Right. Yeah. What other thoughts do we have for the launch period? We've already speculated possibly about Mario Kart and Metroid Prime, even if we may not all agree that's a sure thing. What other opportunities are there for Nintendo? Like, is Mario Kart a sure thing at launch? If not, what else could there be? Like, do we have any other thoughts here? Could there maybe be a Zelda there? A 3D Mario? Like, something else? A Pikmin? They've launched Pikmin games before. It launches multiple times.
I still think there should be like a secondary game next to Mario Kart. I'm not sure if that's going to be Metroid. At least something that showcases, if the mouse feature is a real thing, I'm assuming it is. There needs to be something that makes heavy usage of that just to showcase it. Because usually they have a game that showcases stuff. And it would be weird to not have that there.
Yeah, to go off your point on like the past 3 generations, I mean, Switch 1 launches with 1-2 Switch that showcases the Joy-Cons. Nintendo Land Switch or launches with the Wii U that showcases the gamepad on the Wii U, and then Wii Sports that launches with the Wii. So there needs to be something that kind of ties in that mouse functionality on the Switch too. I'm hoping it is something like a Mario Paint, or maybe it's a brand new IP that we just have no idea about.
Right.
Yeah.
If we go a bit further than that, like even with the 3DS Pilot Wings, you can make it's a bit lackluster, but it showcased how the 3D moves in an open space.
Like, totally. Yeah. I mean, even going back further, Luigi's Mansion is a good showcase of the GameCube's, controller features, with the shoulder buttons. Yeah.
And that's what I mean. Like Mario Kart, if the C button thing is real, is the showcase for that campus thing. Like, and if you have the mouse there, then there would be something significant to that second game that sort of uses it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think absolutely. I think there's going to be some kind of game that makes really strong use of it. And I'm trying. It's fun, but hard to even envision what that could be, especially if it's like a new IP. It could be anything. But like thinking within the realm of existing IP, like Pikmin seems like it'd be a great fit, but I think it's probably a little too soon for another Pikmin.
Sure.
But that seems like such a natural fit. Like you literally just have a cursor and you can drag it and like actually select groups of Pikmin now. That would be so useful, and you could delegate in a way that'd be easier, I would think, than before. But again, I think it's too soon for another Pikmin. So what other like IP do they have that could possibly be launch window that might be a good showcase? We talked creative options. Is there anything else that lends itself well? Like, could Mario have like a helper feature mapped to that, or a helper character mapped to that mouse?
I mean,
definitely, yeah.
Is it crazy to think that Mario's gimmick for the new 3D Mario game is tied to the mouse? Like, I'm trying to think of past Mario games and if they were kind of inherently tied to the system, or if there was a gimmick. I know, like, Super Mario Sunshine had FLUDD, but that wasn't really tied to, I guess, the GameCube. Maybe just the triggers, right?
The analog, yeah.
I think the closest what you're thinking is Super Mario 3D World. Because you could be a helper by selecting blocks on the Wii U gamepad or on the touchscreen on the Switch.
Yeah.
True.
And I guess for Cappy, you just shake the controller, right, to have him move a little further. But again, you don't need to use that.
I guess Mario Galaxy though did make a big deal of it, like the Wii remote pointer.
For sure, yeah.
I almost wonder, like, I'm trying to envision how it could work in Mario. I mean, the pointer functionality is something they have done before.
Yeah.
But, like, I almost wonder, like, could there be moments where, like, it goes into, like, a top-down view, and then you can use, like, your helper character on the mouse to, like, I don't know, interact with the ground or the enemies in the environment in some way, you know? Like, I don't know, maybe you can, like, crazy idea. You dynamically change the landscape, right? Like, you can draw, like, a line on the ground and, like, I don't know, causes like a slight eruption or something. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's gonna be.
I don't know if I'm making sense right now, but
You bring up something like that, and I recently played a bit of Okami, and Okami, that's like a big feature of Okami. It's you're drawing the features or with the paintbrush to actually do your commands. So that's something that you're talking about with Mario.
No, it's gonna be Bennett Foddy's Mario, the creative co-op, and the upcoming baby steps, and you're gonna have to like lift the Joy-Cons to do each step for Mario.
we haven't even talked about the possibility of them using both mice at once. By the way, there's
Yeah.
two of them.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
could
yeah.
have you're like dual wielding mice.
Wow, the next
so
WarioWare is
hard.
going to go insane. Mouse
Yeah,
it
that's
together.
right.
GoldenEye would have done it back in the day.
I hope we get some fun ideas for it too. You know, like and especially with you know, I'm just curious to see how Nintendo makes use of it because one advantage it has too over like the touchscreen. Basically, fundamentally, they're similar concepts. You know, they're pointers, right? But the problem with the problem with the touchscreen was that it basically made one of your hands like not have any access to the button controls. Whereas here with the Joy-Cons, it seems like you'll have access to all your normal buttons. So you're not losing any functionality while using this input. And yeah, I really hope that Nintendo embraces it because I think it could be pretty exciting. I'm just really curious to see like how well it truly does work. Like, will it work on my leg, for instance? But I'm not gonna be carrying a mouse pad with me everywhere, right? Do I have to play at a table? I don't know. We'll see. So I do have an SNES mouse pad. I could bring that with me. But
I hope Star Fox doesn't get stuck on a gimmick for it. And if it does, I hope there's an option. I hope there's an option. Like if the mouse control is the gimmick for Star Fox, I hope there's an option not to use it because that just brings me down with Star Fox Zero on the Wii U. You could not change the controls on it, and it makes no sense because it was in the final year of the Wii U.
yeah.
Sorry, Nick. We're gonna get RTS Star Fox now. It's gonna be like StarCraft,
I would be fine with that.
like moving
I would
around.
be fine with that if that's a new Star Fox game. I'll take an
Sure.
RTS.
Star Fox
Yeah.
Assault 2.
Whatever
I'll
form
take
it
that
takes.
too.
Bill.
Yeah, I think Star Fox Command. I think they almost had like some light RTS elements.
Yeah.
If I
Oh,
remember
yeah.
correctly.
Yeah.
That's actually a good point because I actually am like one of those partial Star Fox Zero defenders. Like I can't defend everything about it. I did enjoy it more than most, I think, but I obviously had issues. But it did remind me, even though I like that game, one thing I've always liked about Star Fox though, which is kind of a weird thing to get into, is how the cursor though is like usually intrinsically tied to your ship. Actually, even in Wii U, that's still to some degree the case. Whereas I don't quite like the free aim you have in like Kid Icarus quite as much because my character feels like completely divorced from where I'm aiming. So yes, to your point, Nick, I kind of hope that they don't rely entirely on the mouse where I'm like moving the cursor completely independently of the ship because then it almost feels like rubbing your stomach and patting your head. And I kind of like the more intertwined gameplay of both, of aiming and dodging at the same time.
So I guess Kid Icarus
together. Yeah.
Kid Icarus would be better suited for it because, like you said, Kid Icarus, you're moving Pit with the left Joy-Con or the left analog stick, and then with the right one, you're moving his cursor around. So again, maybe there is a Kid Icarus this year. Maybe they have the port of Uprising this year.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
Yeah, Sakurai's been not necessarily teasing it, but talking about porting it. So that'd be cool, especially if it gets like the full visual upgrade for Switch 2. That could look amazing. Assuming it's not just a full-on sequel. Real quick, do you think they'll use a mouse at all for the OS? And by extension, will they revamp how the OS works? I'm talking beyond just themes. Could they completely reinvent it, or do you think they'll stick with what works on Switch, where it's just like a single row, basically, of icons?
I definitely expect them to increase the usage of the OS a little more because it just feels like time.
Yeah.
Is there any gaming OS right now that kind of utilizes a mouse? I know all of them are console based, but I'm thinking like Vita, not really. Is there anything that comes to mind to you guys?
Only
No,
like
I can't think of anything.
DS
Maybe
is like a
Steam's
touchscreen,
big picture
right?
mode,
So-
but it's better suited to a controller.
Yeah, because I guess they had a touchpad built in, but I guess they designed it primarily for the main inputs, right? So
Yeah, and big screen mode, that's like Steam for controllers. So
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I'm almost kind of. It's funny. I think one of you mentioned the Vita, right?
Yeah.
That was one of my earlier thoughts a little while ago, where I'm like, for some reason, I'm like, a Vita interface kind of seems like that'd be fun. Like we can like drag things around, like the bubbles and everything. They're bumping into each other and stuff. I don't think they're going to do that, but I would
No.
love some kind of whimsical factor to this, right? Actually, I played a game. It was a sponsored stream I did recently. I actually forget the game name. It had this awesome, cute little detail where like it had this neat like gradient along the edges of these bubbles coming out and fading away. But if you moved your mouse along it, like it would interfere with their pattern and it would like go around your mouse cursor. I'm like, that's cool. I want that on Switch too. I want like interactive borders.
I do think they will keep the icons because mostly switch from backwards compatibility, but I do think the OS needs some sort of upgrade. Once again, it feels like time.
They'll probably
it
refresh
definitely
it,
does.
but maybe we'll get more later on. Like maybe it'll be, even though it's had years and years and years. Like remember, systems used to update their operating system. It's like, oh, it's different now, or like, oh, where the heck is everything? But I think
It's
there is that
time for
possibility.
another 8-year wait of 4 themes, everybody. Let's
Yeah.
go.
I will say, for as much as I don't mind the current Switch OS, just because I appreciate it being fast and not bogged down like the Wii U was, I will say it looks really dated when you look at like the PS5 or Series X, where they have these cool like 3D backgrounds, and it's like
Yeah.
the Switch is a blank
I
black
will-
screen.
I will still lament that I found the OS on Wii U and 3DS way more fun.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that I still go back and I think the Wii U OS still looks cool. Like especially like the glossy like Miiverse type thing they had, the Plaza on
Yeah.
the main screen.
The
That was
music in the
slick. Like the Wii
background.
was actually pretty slick.
And hearing
Sorry,
the
Nick?
people, no, the music in the background and hearing the Mii's just like
Yeah.
tiptoe their way on. Like I
But,
love
e-
the
but
little
e- but
sound
even,
effects. Is so
but even
cute.
3DS, especially once they added the theme shop, oh my god, that theme that 3DS looks just nice to look at with the different themes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And Nick, I still have like Reggie on my Wii U teasing. Stay tuned for E3 news. Oh man, but yeah, I hope like if there is a community feature of some kind, it's like intertwined into the OS in a way that it doesn't like feel completely separate like Miiverse did. I think that was one of Miiverse's problems. Was not only did it feel separate, largely separate from the OS, but also it was so slow to get into. So I never went into it because it took forever.
Yeah.
And I assume that wouldn't be an issue here. But.
Wait, to go to your
Right.
point with the Miiverse, I think, like you said, it felt pretty like disconnected from the actual menu. But you could see little clippets or posts from people. But if you click on it, then it takes like an hour to get into the Miiverse, right? And then you're away from the menu. And if you want to go back to the menu,
Right.
it's going to take you another hour just to get back in there. So yeah, to have that cohesiveness, that would be perfect for the Switch 2.
Yeah. Is there anything else you're expecting feature-wise, or whether OS-wise or hardware-wise, with how they make use of it, that you're hoping or expecting for that they didn't touch on in the reveal here?
I would
So,
say music.
Most things.
Like it's a small thing, but booting up the Wii, booting up the Wii U, booting up the eShop on those days, just hearing the classic music. I don't know if it's a thing, but I felt like it kept me there a little bit longer and allowed me to shop a little bit longer. So maybe it worked in their benefit because like, oh, I'm enjoying this music. I'm looking at stuff where you open up the eShop on the Switch and it's just bland. It's nothing. It's boring. It's slow. It's painful.
I mean, once again, lamenting that the 3DS and the Wii U eShop were far more fun to browse.
Yeah.
They were.
Yeah,
I even going back to re-download games recently on the Wii, which still works. I'm like, oh, this is way more fun than the Switch.
Yeah, admittedly,
yeah.
like one of my big things for Switch 2, like other than like admitting it has Hall joysticks or whatever for the Joy-Cons, so Hall effect, and then just a way better eShop experience. Like I use Steam so much because it's so quick and easy compared to the eShop. Like an eShop, I just have to know the game. I just search, I go in, I buy, I go out. Like there's no browsing, no anything like that. I want it to be like not a painful experience. That's all I have.
It also just needs to be a better storefront because,
Yeah.
like, good indie games and good third-party and first-party games just get buried under a load of
They do.
absolute garbage.
Yeah.
And Tom,
especially because... No, go ahead. Nick.
yeah, so I'll be quick. Yeah, Tom, like you bring up Steam, and just shopping on the Steam store, even though it doesn't look pretty, it's efficient. It works. So
Yeah.
I'm just so shocked that the Nintendo Switch app on mobile, on phones, doesn't allow you to purchase games from there. And it doesn't allow you to purchase games for your friends. Even if you go to the web browser, if I want to buy a game that's on sale for a friend just to surprise them, I can't even do that.
Well, the thing is why it's not on the app. They expect you to go to the actual Nintendo website and buy it there instead, and then download it automatically to your Switch.
Oh, make it easier.
Exactly. It should be easy. So I hope they upgrade the apps in general. Which actually, we didn't even touch on voice chat. We'll circle back to that maybe in a moment. But I have bad news for you, Tom. Potentially, even though it's not confirmation in any way, and I forget what exactly I'm even referencing now. But there was something that came out not too long ago that kind of indicated the eShop would carry over to the Switch 2, or like it had Switch 2 functionality. So we may be looking at a similar eShop. But yeah, it doesn't even feel like formatted well. Like, it feels like it was made primarily for when you're playing in handheld mode, but those icons feel like way too big on the TV, it just doesn't feel right. It's a pain to navigate. And at the least, I hope that they pre-cache things for the Switch 2, because sitting there and waiting for it to load is so freaking boring and terrible and laggy.
It's a detriment that since October 2017, which was the first big update eShop-wise, like 22 games, they barely have updated that eShop since then. It's been almost 8 years.
It is shocking that they haven't like optimized it at all. Like, come on, you can't make that thing better on the current hardware. I don't believe it, and I'm amazed it's not affecting their sales more. Like, it is so inconvenient to access and so annoying that I'm amazed like it hasn't affected their sales. Their sales are probably, maybe it has. Maybe their sales would go up with a better eShop.
but even if the back end stays the same, they can still change the front end, and I really hope that they do.
Yeah, seriously. Nick, one more thing I want to bring up. You mentioned the idea of having music. What if they tied in Nintendo Music, their brand new app? There's having an app on Switch 2, that could be part. You could just set the tracks you want to play as a playlist, and let's do it on your menus.
I didn't even think about that. That's perfect. That would get me more engaged with the music app, because I always forget it's there. I know it's there when I get like a little update.
Right.
It's like, oh, they just added Wind Waker. They just added Mario Sunshine. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll listen to it at some point. But if it was tied to my actual Switch a little bit more, and I could just set that as a background music, that would be perfect.
I just want an original track, please.
Yeah, that'd be...
They have to buy the rights for Trombone Champ and use your Mii's and play along with the music.
No.
All right. Is there anything else about the Switch 2 hardware itself or related OS, whatever it is? Basically, anything outside of Mario Kart you guys want to bring up that we haven't yet for Switch 2? Tom?
I have one concern. Do you feel
concerns are good.
better or worse about that little piece on the Joy-Cons, like on the inside where it will connect to, of snapping off at this point?
Yeah,
you saw it.
The thing that goes right there, or I guess it'd be on the side on the
Yeah.
I'm indifferent. I feel like it's probably strong enough that's not going to be much of an issue, but then again, I would never expect every Joy-Con to drift either.
Yeah, I think it will be fine. You have to press the button down, I feel, to actually detach it proper, or else it really won't detach proper at all. So I have the feeling it will be fine.
Yeah, for us, I think we'll be okay with it, but kids, I think that's where you're gonna have a bit of an issue. So,
I think, like, I'm a little hesitant, but I know it'll be fine. But we will probably have like the week 1 launch stories of like that thing breaking off, or like people playing their Switch and just the screen dropping down onto the floor. I think we will see those. So
that makes me question what they did to their Switch 2 in the first place, though.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Do we have any other actually concerns at all about the system in any way, whether it's hardware based or I don't know, marketability or anything else?
It's a similar situation to me how I felt about Metroid Prime 4. Funny enough, I feel like the big twist is still coming, and I'm sort of waiting until April for that to happen.
Yeah. It does kind of feel like we're in this weird kind of like state now. Nothing much has changed really since before the reveal.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Yeah, we just now know for sure it is real.
The
rumors are true.
The main thing that we currently know is that we have to wait 74 days until a Nintendo Direct happens.
Yeah, exactly. I guess then, do you think Nintendo has set themselves up well for Switch 2 to be a success so far, even if it is still early, or do you think we do have to really just wait? Like, it's like, basically my question is like, is the verdict still out? Like, can you, like, does it seem clear Nintendo knows what they're doing, or could this be another fumble that we could still happen?
Yeah, their messaging is clear, but I still think they have a lot of things to sell, particularly for a greater audience. I see enough 50-50 splits on opinions where I feel like Nintendo still needs to showcase their best stuff, and that best stuff moment is really April 2nd.
Yeah. I think you're probably right. I mean, I think that's what it's going to come down to. Because this is also this is going to be the first like truly fully Iwata-free era. I mean, obviously, I know he passed, unfortunately, prior to the Switch's launch, but he was involved with that as well as the software leading up to it. But now, like, this is...
Not only that, it's the last generation where a bunch of the old guard Nintendo developers are still going to be there. Like, a lot of them are retirement age.
Yep. Yeah, many are in their 70s, if not late 60s. Or I should say 60s, if not 70s. So yeah, this might be the final generation, as Andy from VGC loves to point out, of a lot of these Nintendo developers, which is sad, potentially. But that's why it's going to be interesting to see what they exactly reveal here, and whether the Iwata magic is going to carry over into a fully Iwata free, what's a completely free era now. Basically completely divorced from that, because I feel like, for me at least, and I fully expect not everyone to agree, but for me, I would say personally, the first half of the Switch's lifespan was more exciting than the second half, and that does make me a little wary of going into Switch 2. It's like, oh man, are we going to get kind of more of the same we always have, or have they been holding on to those bigger, really more exciting things because of the Switch 2, and are we going to see that like that I don't know, that kind of like more innovative passion coming through again, which I'm hoping, and we don't know yet, besides maybe Mario Kart, which...
As somebody who likes more experimental titles, I don't fully agree. I enjoyed most of the Switch generation. For me, the only exception, weirdly enough, was 2018, because that didn't feel as much experimental going on. It felt like a very safe year.
Yeah, I can't. I don't know if I can even parse years individually with how long the Switch has been.
Yeah,
but I feel like, for me, like, I like experimental games too, and I feel like I had more of those in the first half, because I mean, I guess Ring Fit was like on the cusp. I feel like Ring Fit is kind of like the tail end of what I thought was like the more innovative era, because we had Breath of the Wild, we had Mario Odyssey, even though they're installments in a long established series, they felt like they're trying some new things, especially Breath of the Wild. We had ARMS, of course, early on, which was a completely new IP.
I would still argue that their midpoint 2019 was their best year.
I remember what was that year.
I mean, it was all the Smash DLC, it was Ring Fit Adventure, it was Labo VR. There's a bunch of
2019.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that's still the first half. That's only 3 years into the lifespan. So yeah, I'd agree with you.
Yeah, I still think that's the best.
Labo,
yeah, I still think it's the best year. I think overall,
it's a good year.
Like, if you like differentiating stuff, it has been a good generation overall.
Well, it's been a long generation overall.
Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Look at how bad the Wii U ended.
Yeah, well, for any number of reasons.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And Nick, actually, I don't know if you brought up the point you brought up earlier, before we started recording this officially, and before we realized this would go well over an hour. You had a point kind of related to that, I think you were touching on. Do you remember?
Yeah, so the point was the first couple of years are really the first year of the Switch, it living alongside the 3DS. Because I went back to 2017 and looked at the first party games for 3DS, and there's a lot of them. Like, even going back in the earlier side of the year, I think we got like Mario Sports Mix, or that might have been the Wii one. It was like Mario Super Sports or something like that.
Mario Sports Superstars.
That was it. Yeah, there was 8 Pikmin that year. There was a port of Mario and Luigi. There was Samus, Metroid 2, Samus Returns. There
Mario
was
Gold.
Yeah. Wait, which one was that?
Mario Gold was in late year, just a year later, wasn't it? Yeah.
I think so. There was a Mario Party that year. Mario Party, like, top 100. There was Pokemon
Right.
Ultra Moon, or Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon.
Yes.
So there was a lot of support for the 3DS, regardless of the Switch being out that year. And the Switch had a ton of games that year. So I think they're probably going to treat the Switch 2 as the original Switch in 2017, and the Switch 1 as the 3DS. Like, there's still going to be a good amount of first-party games coming to the Switch and Switch 2 throughout this year.
I think it makes a ton of sense, because a Switch 1 game is a Switch 2 game.
Yeah.
It will work on both. And I honestly think it would be bad business not to. Now, I know there could be some people who are going to be out there, like we've seen with PS5, why did I buy this if there's no, if not every game's going to be exclusive, or a lot of games are cross-compatible or whatever. But I think, I look at Mario Party Jamboree, I'm like, I don't need this game to look any better. It looks good as is. Looks good enough for Mario Party, So if the next Mario Party is still on Switch 1, I'm cool with that, as long as it's a good game. And I think it will make so much sense for Nintendo to continue to embrace a Switch 1 era because there's so many systems out there. I still think very likely more than Switch 2 will ever sell in its lifetime. And it doesn't make sense to arbitrarily cut off that entire demographic when you can continue to support it while also making Switch 2 games.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think the 3DS comparison is a great one because a lot of us think, we think back, like, well, they killed off the Wii U even well before the Switch came out, minus Breath of the Wild. But it's easy to forget. Well, they kept making games with 3DS too for some time.
Well,
and
yeah.
I think that would make a lot of sense in this case to continue as well.
I mean, also, let's be honest, like, this entire generation, 3DS hard carried it because it still sold really well, despite its rough beginnings. Like, the Wii U never got there.
Nintendo's lucky they always had, until the Switch, a dual stream or dual income stream where if one system faltered, they had the other to rely on. And now with the Switch, though, they combine them. It's like, well, this better work or we're kind of screwed.
That's the interesting part going to be. But also, like you said, with Mario Party, Jamboree, and other games, like, Nintendo is well known for optimizing their games to heck and back. So even if it's a first Switch game, what doesn't matter? You can still play and enjoy it for the most part.
Exactly.
Yeah, and Andre, you bring up something like PlayStation with like the PS5, and I think Nintendo was actually looking at the first half of this generation for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, right? Because like a lot of consumers, even me, I didn't pick up a PS5 till 3 years later because I could still play all those PS5 games on the PS4. I was still playing Horizon, I was still playing God of War. So if I can still play a Metroid or Pokemon on my previous Switch, you still have to cater to that audience, right? Because they're still going to buy those games there. You're not going to lose that, 150 million install base. You still want to kind of support them for the next couple of years.
Yeah, you just downplay it, like you really show it on the new hardware, but then it's like also available on Switch 1. So.
Yeah, I don't think obviously I'm not a business expert, but I feel like you are just losing money potentially if you just completely stop supporting that giant demographic, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, especially because even if they sell through every Switch 2 they make for the first year, you're still appealing to a significantly smaller market than you are with a Switch 1. And I think it just makes sense to embrace anyone in the Switch family as long as you can, really. And I still think it'd be great to get like games that are cross-compatible, as with possibly, maybe, I keep saying a Metroid Prime 4, but like they do with Breath of the Wild, so.
And it's even better if you haven't had a Switch 1 before, because guess what? There's a whole load of games you missed up on.
Exactly. 8 years worth of games,
Yes.
And, there's one final point we haven't brought up, actually, speaking of timing. When is this thing actually launching now? So we know that there is the event happening on April 2nd, but they have not announced a price or release date yet. When are we expecting it? I will say, I guess I'll mention it now, just to get out of the way. I was looking at all the times of all the Switch 2 demos coming out, the public demos, and the latest one that's scheduled is in early June. Do we think that means that it won't launch before that point?
I do really think it's coming out in June. Because it's just before the end of their first financial quarter, which is also a really smart thing, because when their results come in of the first financial quarter, they usually only do their numbers and don't do a Q&A. So if it goes badly, they don't have to say anything.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, to bring up your point, Andre, like the last event is, I think, in Seoul on June 1st. So to release it maybe a week or two after that. And the thing is, like, do we even know if this thing's going to launch internationally all on the same day? I highly doubt it, right? I think they've been doing that well. Is it gonna? It's gonna be everywhere day one.
Yeah, because they did it with the
Switch.
Oh, and if that's the case, then maybe they don't really care about showing it off at these places towards the end of May, right? And just have it out right away in June.
Usually, what they did with Switch was Europe, North America, I think South America, Japan, South Africa, South Korea, and then other markets came a few weeks afterwards, if I remember correctly.
I think, June sounds right, because you'd want people to go to it, and even if like their friends don't make it there, you want them to be talking to their friends and saying like, oh, you have to play it, you have to like pre-order this and get a better impact on day one to sell out on like all those extra Switches they've been making, or Switch 2s. So it's like they could release it while this is going on, but I don't think that's the intention. I think they'd want to be driving up pre-orders.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a week after the Soul one or 2 weeks after that. It's just.
I was thinking that. I think it's really telling, not just in that it won't release until that point, but that it will release shortly after that point. I think it's really interesting because why not just keep making doing preview events up until launch, and with that being the final preview event, unless they announce more, I think you're right, Don. I think there's a good chance it'll launch in June, and especially because I think they just want to get out there as quickly as they reasonably can, and being relatively early in the year, like with the Switch, that worked out in its case, and I think they could replicate it here. You have that mid-year launch, and you get that second pickup during the holidays when you launch a big new game for it, such as a 3D Mario or something.
It's also smart because most public holidays for the summer start in July, so you already have that audience also with you who likes to play on a handheld.
Right.
Well,
yeah, good point.
With 3D Mario, though, do you think they'd hold 3D Mario for like U.S.
Oh
Thanksgiving?
yeah.
Yeah.
We start hold it for what, Tom?
For the
just
end of the
before
year.
Thanksgiving, before that biggest launch week, in November.
They did that for Odyssey.
Yeah, so I think they would do that again. If
They actually they haven't had like a launch Mario in a while, actually. I think, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what was the last launch. I guess, are we considering New Super Mario Bros. Wii U? Or you?
We don't count that for anything.
No.
I mean,
Sunk with you. So
I think that was like the last thing, right?
if it that one doesn't count, it's Super Mario 64 DS.
Yeah.
yeah, actually, wow, you're right. So Mario 64 twice over. Because even Sunshine, missed the launch window, so by a significant amount, of course. So yeah, I think it makes sense to repeat that strategy, and which is why I am thinking more and more that Mario Kart's going to be the main Mario game at launch. It just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And 3D Mario could give it, or a Mario, a new,
In the time the Mario movie releases next year, right?
Right. So great timing.
They're gonna want a 3D Mario right before the Mario movie, even if it comes out October or November. We're gonna be talking about the Mario movie around that time probably, right? Because then that gives us another 4 or 5 months till it actually comes out.
And having like two tentpole Mario games in its anniversary year, which is also this year, is a good thing.
Yeah, that's a great point, Don. I forgot, like the 40th anniversary. So
40th year.
Any year you get like a new Mario Kart that's not Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and and a new Mario, it's like pretty exciting year if you think about it.
Oh yeah,
that's
for
really
sure.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Assuming it's a new Mario, but I'm assuming there's some. I'm assuming it's that.
And kind of related to that point, Nick, not to veer too far off here in speculation, but I have been wondering if, obviously we're probably not going to get a brand new mainline 3D Zelda for quite some time. Tears of the Kingdom took, 6 years, I think? And I assume that they still only have the one main team working on those. And while we may get other spin-offs in the meantime, or the top-down Zeldas, I still think anything like that is a ways away. And it got me thinking, though, they have a live-action Zelda coming up. Could they pair with that maybe finally a full-on remake of one of their games, like Ocarina of Time, which I assume, a movie would probably take a lot of inspiration from. Maybe not, I don't know. But that seems like that'd be a great game to pair it with, right? Like, hey, we can't make a new 3D Zelda, but here's Ocarina of Time in the same vein as, Final Fantasy VII, finally being remade after decades.
And yeah, we're kind of done in the movie era tie-in, right? Like, we don't get that anymore. So just have a game or something around that time of the movie coming out will be great. So for example, when when the Sonic movie came out, they released the DLC, even though that was tied into the movie. They still had Shadow Generations, a month or two before. So people were still playing the newest Sonic game leading up to the Sonic movie. So to have something related to Zelda or something related to Mario just to tie into the movie, like I said, it doesn't have to be a tie-in game, just would really help sell the game.
Yeah, 100%. I fully agree. It just makes too much sense, which is why it probably won't happen. But here's hoping. So I think if they did something like that, like a 4K visual remake of an existing game, that could be massive. I think it would help fill that gap, because it is hard for me to imagine Nintendo going, I guess 4 years from that point potentially, unless they somehow figure out a way to make 3D Zeldas faster. Even 3 years, a full 3 years without some kind of 3D Zelda presence. Unless I guess they could do here's Breath of the Wild in 4K or the deluxe edition or whatever. And maybe
I totally see that happen, though. I totally see that happen. They're
might.
Here you go. Here's Breath of the Wild again.
Here's Breath of the Wild again.
God.
It's not
Why
like
do they
I
find
knew
a way
going. We challenged ourselves. once again to make a Zelda game in 1 year. Here's Majora's Mask 2 in the Breath of the Wild engine.
I'm there for that. That'd be amazing. Like, because sometimes like those restrictions force creativity, right? And that could just give us like some kind of insane Zelda in Breath of the Wild's world. I would love that. So, anyways, all right. I think real quick, some insider baseball talk. This went a longer than I thought. I'm almost thinking, should we just make Mario Kart its own discussion now at this point?
Yeah, sure, why not? Yeah.
There's a lot to talk about Mario Kart, so.
What?
I said there is a lot. Like we can be talking about Mario
we will
Kart
make
for like
it
another
a lot.
hour or so. So
probably exactly. So rather than this video go on for forever, I think we'll wrap it up about here. But before I do, anything else about Switch 2? You guys gotta get out there, or are we? Have we touched on it all?
I think we touched on most stuff.
I think we did pretty good.
I'm gonna say just back in the day, like any Nintendo console's always been about the games. Like I remember as a kid, Super Nintendo, seeing that giant, was it Bazooka Bill or Bonsai Bill in the commercial? It looks so huge. It's like I have to get this game now. And it's like, or like just seeing Mario 64 in motion, being amazed by that. Like it wasn't about the hardware ever really. It was just about the new experiences. So it's gonna be all about the games. So.
It's about the friends we made along the way.
That's a good way of putting it, Tom, actually. It is so, and for Nintendo fans in particular, it is often so much about that, and rarely has it been about the power. It hasn't been about the power since arguably the GameCube era at the latest. But, then to see, it is kind of interesting to see a reveal that's both about the hardware, but also not really at the same time. Yeah. So they didn't focus on the power. They didn't really get into like any of the tech specs or even the capabilities. Like they tease the mouse by having them literally act as mice, like physical, like organic mice. It's like such a Nintendo way of doing things. It's so goofy.
Yeah.
And it's just really interesting to see like what actually comes to fruition of this come April 2nd. We actually do get that lineup of games and see what they actually are intending to do with the hardware, and I'm excited for it. So are we all more excited now than we were before, than reflecting on the Switch 2 after its reveal? Or I know it's obviously still a waiting period, but
yes,
we're excited.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm so excited. I'm excited that the Switch 1 is still going to be, hopefully still around for a bit, because then we're still going to get ports, and I can still play those ports on my Switch 2. Like, give me some games that haven't been ported. I know I keep bringing up Star Fox, but I'll take any Star Fox. If new or old, like Star Fox, a Kid Icarus, a Custom Robo, a Sin and Punishment, something along those lines that they can port over. I'll take any of those.
I heard Donkey Kong Returns just came out.
There we go. That's it.
No, Nick's
I gotta buy it for the third time.
Return for the third time, everybody.
Star Fox, come a little closer, but we'll see.
If Star Fox comes back real quick, again, not to go on another tangent, I need to have like a big multiplayer focus too. I mean, that could be a really fun, great community game. And,
could you imagine like they do like a Star Fox 99, just like 50 on each team, like Team Star Wolf, Team Star Wolf, like just going into that Independence Day battle.
No, the thing I want is WarioWare 99. Give me that.
Oh
that would actually work.
All right.
Jump rope forever on the 99 little guys, but then if one person dies, it's over.
You know what I want? I want them to bring back that mode from the GameCube version. Have you guys ever played that Mega? I forget what it's called. Where you could have, after you got knocked out, you could have your character run around the screen and block other people's screens. I want out 99 people.
No, you can't be that stupid dog.
No, we need to think bigger. Kirby City Trials 99.
Oh my
yes,
God.
yes. I've been saying that game's basically the original Fortnite. I want Kirby Air Ride Fortnite now. A bigger version of that. Oh,
admittedly, this might be a thing already, but I want like Mario Fall Guys. Like have it where there's like a million different Marios. Like imagine making your way up Bob Mountain.
Tom, that could be the ultimate realization of that Mario
that Mario 128
game 128. Yes, right. Yeah, from the GameCube.
Yeah, just like everyone running like in a huge field, then there's tons of space, and like eventually you get whittled off as it gets more and more narrow. It's kind of like Mario Party in a way, but on a huge scale.
Man,
it's Granite Gateway, but good.
See, now we're getting too excited. Now we're getting too hyped.
Tone it down, guys. Bring down your hype levels. I'm sorry.
She's gonna be
bring it back
down. It's
down.
not gonna be fun.
All right. Well, there we go, everyone. That's our extensive talk on the Switch 2. Of course, we're excited to see what happens on April 2nd, but we're not done yet because we're still going to talk about the one game we know about for sure, being Mario Kart 9, maybe? Whatever the Mario Kart game is on Switch 2, that'll be in a separate discussion coming up very soon. So stay tuned to the channel for us to dive in deep on that game. I can't wait because I'm a huge Mario Kart fan. I'm excited to discuss it with all of you. Real quick before we go, Nick, where can people find you at?
Everyone, you can find me here on GameXplain. I've been making shorts for a bit now. You can also find me on my own channel called Steftendo. So it's STEF, as in like my last name, Stefanacci, and then Nintendo, TENDO, Steftendo on YouTube. I've been making shorts there, so yeah, you can find me there.
And they'll be linked in the description, along with whatever Don's about to say. Don, where can people follow you at?
Blue Sky, Twitch, Twitter, also back on YouTube doing stuff, which is all at Nintendo, NINTENDAAN.
Perfect. And how about you, Tom? What do you have for us?
Just try out my twin stick car harpooning action party game Carpoons demo on Steam. If you have Steam,
Try
let
Carpoon.
me know. Play it.
It's fun. Go check it out.
Yes.
Harpoon's great. It's linked in the description. Go wishlist it. I think people can do that now. Go check it out. It's a lot of fun. So, on that note, everyone, thank you for watching. And stay tuned for more on Switch 2, of course, including our upcoming discussion on the new Mario Kart game, which I'm excited to talk about. Everyone, thanks for watching. Catch you later. Bye.